Ross Dellenger was in town this weekend, back down in Baton Rouge. Ross was on the LSU beat for 5 seasons, so he was a resident of BR for a while. Ross, this is the weekends I imagine that you miss being down here in South Louisiana when LSU takes care of business on a Saturday night like they did.
I do, yeah. It's certainly fun. There's something a little different, obviously about. Well, I should say a lot different in living in Washington D.C. Up there, Sundays are obviously the big day with the Redskins, and now the Nationals playing. It's all pro. You get that all pro sports feeling. But back down here, it's just totally different. Now and get that Saturdays in the fall. I had the first day of fall too. Big election day on Saturday too. It was just a wild day around town. I got to kind of experience all of it, from the stuff with the governor and the election to obviously the first half of the game I was at, and watched the second half from the governor's watch party. So it was quite a crazy day.
Yeah, the Saturday was wild. Tell me, what did you learn about LSU? Because offensively, they still produce like they have been. The numbers aren't as gaudy as they've been, but T-Bob argued in hour number 1 that they may be more impressive than the big 500, 600 numbers that they've been putting up routinely. What did you learn about LSU Saturday night?
Well, the first thing I've probably learned is that when they need to make a defensive stop, they can. And we didn't really see that against the other really strong opponent that LSU played, Texas. But we did Saturday night. We saw that they made probably 3 or 4 really crucial stops in the second half, only allowing 1 touchdown. I saw where the key behind that was Aranda and them bringing more blitzes. That's the thing with Dave Aranda. And I know you guys here don't get to talk to him a ton, but just from talking to other people in the coaching community, and oddly enough, Todd Orlando, the defensive coordinator at Texas, and I were talking about this a few weeks ago when I was over there in Austin. Dave has a lot of different defensive calls, and he ran them all at Wisconsin. We haven't seen him run near as many at LSU. And I think there's probably a lot of different reasons for that. But I think sometimes it's almost like it's too conservative of an approach, or it can be. And it looks like in the second half he got out some of those calls, started making some different calls and getting pressure. And that's the thing that was missing, from LSU in the first half is pressure. So number one, it's certainly big defensive stops in the second half. And I would say, I would agree with T-Bob there, Jordy, in that the second thing would be the moving the ball against, by far, the best defense that LSU has faced.
They got 12 first-place votes in the AP Top 25. Were you one of them?
Well, I don't vote in the AP Top 25 anymore. They kicked me out, But
was it the whiskey?
Not into cool people over there, or what?
That's right. Drinking too much.
Let me ask you this. Do they deserve those 12 votes? Would you have given them a number 1 vote?
No, probably not. But I think I think in a lot of ways they deserve it. Yeah. I have my own little SI top 10 poll. I have number 2. I've had them number 2 since the Texas game, though. It's not like anything, Nothing for me has really changed. After the Texas game, I moved LSU up, I believe it was, all the way up to number 2. If not, it might have been the next week after Vandy, maybe. I don't remember. But I've had them 2 for at least 2 or 3 weeks. And I think they're right there, and I think I've been on with you guys talking about this, the polls and things like that, and how I vote. I always look at it from 2 perspectives. The resume, I just look at kind of the numbers and who you played. And then, the other thing I look at is how I feel about, just more of a feel of watching you, And there is, in that part of it, there is some, I think, thinking about the past a little bit.
Yeah.
So I have Alabama number 1, and I always think of myself, too, who would win on a neutral field. So it's a lot of things I kind of that go into to voting in the poll. But I absolutely think LSU has every argument to make at being the number 1 team in the nation.
Yeah, and we're talking to Ross Dellenger from Sports Illustrated. Ross, I want to focus on this offense for a second again because, as we said, not only was this the best defense that they had faced by far, a defense that a lot of people consider is one of the best in the country, but you go 12 yards per pass attempt, you go 9 yards per carry, 10.6 yards per play, which is a record for LSU in an SEC game. 48 points, 42 plays. Burrow looks like the Heisman front runner. It's just so, I mean, have you ever witnessed a year-to-year revolution like the one that is currently going on in Baton Rouge? You covered a lot of sports.
I can't really think of it. From a wins-loss perspective, obviously we've seen some incredible turnarounds and things like that through the years. But from just a schematic perspective, it's just incredible to see what they've been doing. And I know this has been building, but it does feel in a way that it's happened overnight.
Yeah.
I guess it just feels like that. But I know it's evolving and it's been building to this point. I just never thought it would get quite to this level. It is just incredible, and
it's the greatest example of coaching doesn't matter argument. I mean, like it's the greatest example that you can give. I mean, one guy. I mean, Joe Brady. You bring one guy in, and the total feeling around the offense.
Now to Ross's point, I do think that Brady was kind of the piece to get them across the finish line, right? We said it's kind of like a stars aligning situation. The fifth-year senior in Burrow, the talented wide receiver group returning a bunch in the O-line. Steve Ensminger, the rare long-time coach that doesn't have a huge ego but does have tons of play-calling experience. Like, it's definitely all lined up. Ross, which is why it feels like LSU – it's like you got to take advantage of this year. Like you got to really push this thing as far as you can.
Yeah, you're right. I'll say that. I'll add in one more too. How about Ed Orgeron being this kind of going outside his comfort zone with this kind of risk-taking mentality we've seen now a few times this season. Not only hiring a 29-year-old to come in and overhaul an offense that won 9-10 games a year for 12 years, but to go on the attack late in games and put the game away offensively against Texas, against Florida, just going there in the middle of the fourth quarter and saying, hey, we're going to chunk the ball. We're going to win the game on the arm like quarterback.
Great point.
I mean, that has been, to me, one of the most impressive things because you guys got to remember, I covered an LSU team where Ed Orgeron was the defensive line coach for 2 years. Then he was the interim coach, and then he was the first-year coach. And he made some mistakes during all those times, especially the last two, and especially during his interim year with offense. He did, and he admits he made some mistakes. So it's incredible to see some of the decisions that he's made too. But obviously, Joe Brady coming in, Joe Burrow, all these talented receivers, and an offensive line that seems to be making progress at every game. It's like the perfect storm.
Yeah, and what's wild now is you have Ed Orgeron, Ross. He has 7 wins over top 10 teams since 2016. That's more than Dabo Swinney. In fact, that's more than anybody except for Urban Meyer and Nick Saban. What's your reaction when you hear a stat like that? Like, how do you interpret that?
Well, head coaching, and I think really good head coaches through the history of college football would tell you that you're a CEO first. And so the biggest deal for a head coach in general is decision making, and the decisions, and I'm not talking about in-game decisions, things like that, much bigger decisions like, and what Ed has done mainly bringing in talented players and coaches, and the decision in doing that, going out and doing what his predecessor never really wanted to do. Les wasn't a big guy on going out and getting transfers.
Yeah,
Ed has done it in a small degree, but significant ones. Joe Burrow, the kicker, Cole Tracy,
Thad
and
Moss.
then of course the hiring of Joe Brady, like we talked about. those things, I mean, gosh, I mean, they're just significant. Bringing in significant talent to the program when he knows when he doesn't have something, he better go out and get it, and he's doing it.
Deli, good to have you back in South Louisiana, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, okay. I got a story dropping this afternoon. I'm gonna warn you.
Okay.
Because last time this happened, okay. So after lunch, there will be something dropping on LSU football and Louisiana politics.
Ooh, okay, nice.
Break that on Moscona, and we'll talk about your rate. Later, buddy.